We finally know what the next Pokemon game looks like, and this might turn out to be one of the most interesting titles ever. What exactly is the new Lumio City in the center of Kalos? What's our new quest? And who exactly are these new people? To start this off, we're introduced to this huge new Lumio City, which seems even larger than before. Based on the trailer, we arrive at Lumio Station, then head to Hotel Z, where AZ is the manager. Right away, it's unclear if there is a professor at all, so AZ might actually take that role since professors typically would get announced by now. What's interesting is that Sycamore should technically still be here, and when looking at the map, although it's probably not exact, at the bottom row of buildings we see this building which is probably the exact same lab. Though to add a bit of confusion, one of the main characters looks exactly like Professor Sycamore, with a matching hairstyle and eye color. So this is most likely a descendant, and if this is after X and Y, maybe even the prof's son. To add a bit more, if we go back to the trailer when we see the starters lined up as if you're about to choose one, we're right in front of this purple building, which from another angle, we can pinpoint the location to somewhere on this eastern half of South Boulevard, which is just a short walk to the prof's lab, and it even looks like we'd use Wild Zone 1 to get there. You can kind of tell this based off of the curvature of the road and the color of the house's roofs, which makes total sense from older Pokemon games where the lab is at the start. So maybe in Pokemon Legends ZA, Sycamore will give you a starter Pokemon and a Pokedex, and on the other hand, AZ will give you the important quests related to the story. And this whole thing could work to explain the odd choice of starters, like the original ones when you had to pick one from Kanto. Alright, now we know how the adventure starts, what are some objectives for us to do? Right away, I've managed to figure out 3 main goals. Starting with Quizartico, they're the company behind everything related to Lumios's redevelopment, which means they would have designed these wild zones. Now the zones might look a little disappointing at first since in past games, we've been used to these large open areas. If we go back to Pokemon Legends Arceus, in that game the way we caught and approached Pokemon still appears to be the same. They don't show it in the video, but apparently you'd be able to hide in the bushes once again to perform that same sneak attack. But when we were playing Arceus, our goal involved this exploration of untouched land and completing the Pokedex, and the game's areas were mainly designed for that in mind. Back to ZA, they don't even mention a Pokedex and they don't really show some of these more interesting catching features that we talked about. But with this new real-time battle system, there's more an emphasis on Pokemon battles. And these took up quite a sizable portion of the trailer. We even have a clip where we're fighting against a Pokemon, but this Pokemon is actually controlled by a trainer. What's interesting, we're not fighting on one of these battle courts. Instead, we're in a regular wild zone, which could mark the return of the old classic trainer battles. So now we know battling is very important. When we look back at Lumiose, it looks like the map is divided into 5 sections based on different colors, which is similar to the map in Pokemon Legends Arceus, also having 5 different areas. So maybe each section has its own challenge. And how would this work? Well, each area has its own plaza, and from what we've seen so far, these plazas look to be some of the larger wild zones. This could be a great place for a boss arena, especially with their circular shape. So maybe these Quizartico people send you to each zone to calm the Pokemon down. And this feature was shown off very briefly, but in this shot we see some sort of horde battle in progress. You can tell because a singular attack can affect every creature on the field at once. I think they could use this feature in boss battles to make them more enjoyable and chaotic if you have to defend against multiple Pokemon all at once. Now our second objective involves Zygarde. More specifically, Zygarde cells. In the original Pokemon X and Y, we were robbed out of everything to do with Zygarde, which is why they rushed in whatever they had left into Sun and Moon. And in this case, I still think we'll have to collect a bunch of them, though it will still be more interesting with actual Zygarde cells instead of just these shiny blobs. Though what's cool about Zygarde is its role in the XYZ anime. In episode 39, Team Flare basically hijacks Lumio City so they can create a 100% Zygarde, which I find is super fitting for this new story that we have. And they also have this huge battle on Prism Tower, which raises another question: what's happening with Prism Tower? Based on all this redevelopment, I bet Quizartico, since they're in charge of everything, have renovated Prism Tower. It's likely that it's no longer a Pokemon gym and maybe some sort of Pokemon sanctuary. But just like the Pokemon anime with the battle on top of the tower, I think we should expect something similar with a large finale on the summit. And it's even possible that they take this ultimate weapon and turn that into Prism Tower, just cause of its similar shape and how it holds such incredible power. Although I don't think that AZ would be involved. And if he was involved, there's no way he would do this on purpose. I highly doubt that he's a villain since he was cursed for 3,000 years for messing with this ultimate weapon, and with what we're looking at, only now he's at peace. Okay, so our final objective will probably revolve around Mega Evolution. In past Pokemon games, although we know a little bit about Mega Evolution, there hasn't really ever been any closure to it. In other Pokemon games, each gimmick had a lot more background to it and ended in a very cool way. In Area Zero, Scarlet and Violet has this huge fight with this special terastallized Terrapagos. Sword and Shield has this explosion of Dynamax energy, which results in Eternamax Eternatus. And finally, Ultra Sun and Moon has Ultra Burst Necrozma, which uses an incredible amount of Z power to take place. Mega Evolution, on the other hand, is missing so much. In the original X and Y, they give you a Mega Stone, and that's pretty much it. There's only 4 main times where an opponent actually uses Mega Evolution in the entire game. What I find especially interesting is most of the Kalos Elite Four had Pokemon that could Mega Evolve, but they just chose not to, not even in the rematches. Point is, it's very odd how they didn't add anything extra. Mega Evolution took quite the backseat, and they definitely had more ideas, especially now that we know that there was much more originally planned, including all these towns and cities planned for the south of Kalos. I will say Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire definitely redeem Mega Evolution. They added more trainers and this main story with Mega Rayquaza, but unlike other gimmicks where we have more background, this doesn't really happen. So it turns out we don't actually know a whole lot on Mega Evolution. But where it gets interesting is when it comes to Pokemon Sun and Moon. Mega Evolution makes a return very discreetly. Sinnoh and Dexio return from X and Y to give you a Mega Stone towards the end of the game. I know they were mainly researching Zygarde forms, but the game hints that they probably took a look into Mega Evolution. And they also mentioned the Z-Ring right before giving you the stone, so they must have researched the difference between them, comparing the two's power. It's possible that they bring whatever they've discovered into Legend ZA. Maybe they've discovered brand new forms since they were researching Megas. At the same time, since they were looking for Zygarde, maybe there's a connection to Zygarde with Mega Evolution. Since Mega Evolution actually goes beyond the Pokemon's original capacity, this could work well for Zygarde. And by overloading Zygarde, maybe we can reach even beyond its 100% form, maybe a 200% form. So in general, that's what I think our adventure holds for us. Special battles for each of these zones, something interesting with Prism Tower, and more on Mega Evolution. Finally, the last topic hinted in the trailer is this, the Looker Bureau. This was shown for a split second at the end of the trailer, and upon inspection, with the same wall, the same desk area, the exact same kitchen, this is definitely the same place. And this sort of opens the gate for returning characters featured in the original games to reappear, so it would make sense for Looker to come back once again. Except this time around, the office is a bit different. It's been more lived in since before. The desk is covered with books, there's newspapers all over the floor, and there's some sort of map with strings everywhere in the corner of the room. By the looks of it, there's something big happening in Lumio City, and they've clearly been busy researching. Now, what's even more interesting is how the brown coat is no longer here, and in its place is a blue trench coat. I actually think this belongs to Emma. Since Looker moved on at the end of X and Y, it only makes sense that Emma would take his place. For one, the color matches pretty close to her, and she was left in charge of the whole Looker Bureau once Looker left. I think out of all the characters, she'd be the most likely to return. But what exactly is their new goal? Looking at the Lumio City map in the corner, although it's very blurry, we can almost see where some of these strings are pointed. First, we have this long one seemingly running to Prism Tower. The one right above it looks like it could be running to Quasartico's building, but it could also be running to Magenta Plaza, which is just down the street where Lysander Labs used to be located. And since the Looker episode ended here, maybe this is where it starts off. The final two seem to point somewhere over here. The top may be AZ's hotel, and this bottom one might be slightly below it. The only place that I can think of is this one area, which from the map and trailer seems to be the largest wild zone. But alright, that's about it. Pokemon Legends ZA has been full of surprises and probably holds even more than we realize. It even looks a lot different than what we've seen with Legends Arceus, and I think all of this will turn out pretty neat in the end. Thanks for watching.